there was a lot of shock for me when I got to school in Russia, and I realized that you have to participate. It forms almost 40% of your overall grade. Hello everyone, welcome to another video today on my channel. So if you're new here, my name is Eugenia Oredwa, and if you're a returning subscriber or a returning viewer, you're welcome. Stay tuned and don't forget to subscribe, to comment your questions, and to like this video. And if you're feeling generous, please do share the videos to others. Okay, so in today's video we are going to talk about basically what it's like to study in Russia. And I did receive some questions, I did receive some comments in the previous video I made. A little bit about myself. I studied in Russia for the last 3 years, pursuing a master's degree. After the master's degree, I stayed for an additional year to work. So I have pretty much, some experience of what it's like to be an international student. Why Russia? Well, it's interesting because I got the opportunity to study for free. That's the truth. So there was a scholarship, a fully funded scholarship with some stipends to study for my master's degree. Number two, just the international exposure that comes with being an international student. You get to meet different people from different countries in the program, diverse opinions, things like that. So it hasn't been always easy, okay, from the freezing winters to some of the culture shock I got and navigating a new language, a new culture. But it has been interesting and an eye-opening opportunity and experience for me. I've got a lot of stories and tips for you as a potential international student in Russia, so stay tuned. Okay, so the first question. How was your admission process like, especially as an international student? I think basically the admission process really depends on, the university and then the program you're offered. For instance, as someone who got a scholarship, the process was a little bit different for me. I applied directly to my university. The university is called the Higher School of Economics. Shout out to you guys. It's one of the best universities in Russia, by the way. So when I applied directly to them, I was offered a full scholarship. But there's a deadline to apply for programs if you are interested in getting a scholarship. Usually from November to April, there's a window to apply for a fully funded place. The most popular ones I know are the Russian government scholarship. It offers a quota to international students in every university across Russia. And then there is Open Doors. Open Doors is a wonderful scholarship opportunity, especially for students from Africa, if you're interested in applying. Now let's go to the other side. If you decide to go as a fee-paying student. So as a fee-paying student, you can also apply directly to the university of interest. There are several universities across Russia. There is my university, of course, Higher School of Economics, HSC. And then there is also St. Petersburg State University. There's also Moscow State University. These are like the top 3 universities in Russia. Obviously, there are other universities that are equally good. I know there's Ruden. And the interesting thing about Ruden is that it has a lot of African students there. The portal for applications usually open from November. You can keep applying till June if you want, but then you wouldn't get a scholarship if you don't apply before April. So if you're offered the place, then you can go in as a fee-paying student. I can only speak about the master's students because I was a master's student, but then I know that the bachelor's programs also do something similar. You pay your school fees yearly, and you also pay a part of it every term. So it's a bit flexible for you as a student to pay your school fees if you're a fee-paying student. So now, let's talk about documentation process. The documentation process is a bit rigorous because, mind you, Russia is a foreign country with a different language that is not in English. So, which means that you have to translate all your documents into Russian. So the necessary documents you need to apply for a university in Russia are the usual documents across every other country, right? You need your transcript, you need your certificate, you need recommendation letters from your professors. That is if you are applying for a master's degree. So you may need to submit about 2 to 3 recommendation letters from your professors from your bachelor's program. But if you're applying for a bachelor's program, you can also submit a recommendation letter, probably from your senior high school level. Okay. And you also need to submit a CV if you have work experience. You also need to submit any certificate you acquired outside of academic sphere. So maybe you joined a competition, you joined a hackathon, anything that makes you stand out as a student. And also if you have any certificate from school that also makes you stand out, maybe you were the best student of your year, you need to submit all of these documents. The reason why it's important to submit these documents is because it adds some points to your portfolio. And the higher your portfolio, the higher the possibility of getting a fully funded place. Another document that is extremely important in the application process are your medical results. I think it's the same in every country. You need to do a comprehensive medical report that shows the status of your HIV status, that shows tuberculosis, it shows hepatitis B, all these general medical tests, yellow fever, card, and etc. You need to do all of these things in order to present them to the school to show that you're medically fit to study in the country. And again, all these documents must be translated into Russian. So depending on the country you're from, there are a lot of translation services available to you. You can decide, to use any of them. Sometimes the best places to get a translation service is to visit the nearest Russian embassy in your country. Okay, so let's go into the second question. Do you need to speak Russian to study in Russia? Applying at the master's level or the postgraduate level, master's and PhD, there are a lot of English taught master's and PhD programs in Russia. And if your program is in Russian, you likely need to take a 1-year preparatory course called the PATFAC, translated as a foundational year. So where you learn Russian for 1 year, enough to understand Russian language, enough to get by, enough to study in Russian. So this 1 year, you have a rigorous studying process. And by the end of the year, you would have picked up the language and you can understand what is being taught in class. You'll be able to write in Russian, you'll be able to speak in Russian enough to participate in class. But in my opinion, I think studying Russian as a language helps in general, even if your program is an English taught program, since you get by easily if you can communicate in Russian. So even if your program is English taught, most universities offer Russian language as a preparatory course to their students if they want to pick up the language, even programs where the master's program or the PhD program is in English. And I find that when you're able to understand the language easily, you just get by better in the country. What is the teaching style like in Russia? Well, I think in my opinion, the teaching style in Russia can be quite formal, just like some Western countries, like maybe the UK or the US. Professors are highly respectable, but one thing I like about them is that they are easy to communicate with. I mean, I can speak for my universities that most of our professors are easy to communicate with. If you're confused about something, they're always just an email away or even a telegram text away. And you can go to their office during their office hours. They can explain some concepts to you that you didn't understand during the main class. You can even have a sit down with your professor for a coffee break if you want to have them, just to discuss something outside of class. So it's quite formal, but then also very approachable. So that's what I realized during my study there. But the education system generally focuses on both theoretical and practical knowledge. One thing you need to take notice of is attendance. Attendances can be quite strict, and this is mostly because of the class sizes. For example, in my class, we were barely up to 15 people in the class. So they usually don't keep or lump a lot of people in one class. Another thing is about participation in class. There was a lot of shock for me when I got to school in Russia and I realized that you have to participate. It forms almost 40% of your overall grade. Okay, so the next questions have been grouped under basically living in Russia. So the first question under living in Russia I got was, what is the cost of living for a student in Russia? The cost of living in Russia varies depending on the city. Moscow and St. Petersburg are more expensive cities to live in general, while cities like Kazan, Tomsk, Novosibirsk, Volgograd are much cheaper and more affordable to live in. So on average, as an international student, you might spend around $300 to about $600 per month, depending on your expenses. Okay, so your expenses usually would include food, transportation, rent or accommodation, and clothes. For instance, food. So per month, if you decide to cook your own food, you may have to get groceries. And sometimes groceries for a month can cost up to 5,000 to 7,000 rubles a month, depending on the kind of food you want to cook. If you're African and you want to go to the African market every weekend to buy some African food stuff, then it might go higher. Some people also do not prefer to cook. As international students, they prefer to buy maybe McDonald's or Burger King. So I think depending on which one you want to get, you can get some as low as 200 rubles. And I know a couple of friends who get McDonald's and Burger King throughout the month. So with that, they can spend close to like $30 to $40 on food every month. Now let's come down to rent. My scholarship covered my tuition and gave me a stipend. So for me, the stipend given to me was what covered my rent and accommodation. If you're fortunate, you can get school accommodation, as most of the universities have accommodation attached to them. And the accommodation per month can cost up to 2,000 rubles. There are some other universities where accommodations are even given to fee-paying students. So universities like maybe Ruden or universities like Mrs. have accommodation for fee-paying students as well as fully funded students. And accommodation can cost from 2,000 rubles over there to up to 15,000 rubles, depending on the number of people in the room. Accommodation contains everything you need. The only thing you need to bring is your suitcase that contains your clothes. You don't need anything else. Now let's talk about transportation. Lucky enough, the Russian government provides a card for students in general. This card is called the social card. When you have a social card, it gives you discounts on so many things, including transportation. So it's better to buy a monthly package for the transportation system. A social card discounts the transportation system into about 70%. So you just pay very little for the month. Sometimes you can pay 600 rubles or 700 rubles for transportation in a month. So all of these things adds up to your cost of living in Russia. Next question, what are accommodation options for international students? So I did talk about accommodation options previously, so I'm not really going to go into details, but I'll just talk about students who choose to rent in Russia. Okay, so again, like I said, most universities provide dormitories and most of them are affordable. If the dorm life is not for you and maybe you want to rent a place, you can go and rent an apartment. Renting an apartment is an option, but it's more expensive. You should budget close to 25,000 rubles or 30,000 rubles for a single room for yourself. Okay, so the next question I have is, how easy is it to get around in Russian cities? I presume you're asking about transportation, yes? So again, transportation in Russia is very efficient and affordable as well as reliable. Cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg have some of the best transportation system globally. So usually it's called metro, and it's clean, it's fast, it's safe, and usually the tickets cost very little. So if you are able to enter one metro station with your metro card, you can go to different stations without paying for them. So for example, maybe you're moving from one town to another town. From there, from the second town, you're going to a third and a fourth town. So far as you're within the metro system, you only pay once. Also, there are a lot of transportation systems available in Russia. There are surface transports like buses, trams, and trolley buses, which are widely available, and they're very efficient, so they spend minimal time to run through the city. And also there are some underground transportation systems like the fast trains, which are also equally efficient and extremely fast, and they stick to their schedule. Usually the wait time between each train is like a minute to 2 minutes. The next train arrives, and it runs from 5 a.m. to 12 midnight. So it's really good. For navigation, I would recommend downloading the Yandex map Yandex Map is one of the best navigation tools you can ever find. And also there's Yandex Go. So Yandex Go is a form of Uber in Russia, and it's very safe, very efficient. You order for a ride, it's straight to your doorsteps, and you can just move around as much as you want. And usually they are also quite cheap. For Yandex Map, it helps you to navigate the transportation system. There's also Yandex Metro, which shows you the lines in the transportation system, the subway system in the city, and it really makes your stay in Russia very efficient. But again, learning some Russian language helps you when you're reading these signs and asking for directions in general. But if you have the Yandex Map, possibility of getting lost is very low because it's very efficient. A couple of questions came asking if Russia was a safe place for international students. So I would say that generally Russia is one of the safest countries you can ever find yourself as a person, not even as an international student especially. And I think that there is very low crime rates. You cannot keep firearm as it's illegal, and you can go anywhere at any time you want. You just have to stay alert, right? So you can move around easily as there are a lot of cameras on the streets that make sure that there's nothing bad going on anywhere. So generally, I think Russia is one of the safest countries you can ever find yourself as a person. There's hardly a lot of crime going on, a lot of theft or people being killed in the streets or things like that. Those things do not happen in Russia. But I would recommend for you as an international student to always keep your passport and your registration document on you, as once in a blue moon, security or the police can stop you just to check your ID. This is all part of the safe checking process to make sure that the country is safe. So yeah, it really helps a lot. And my experience has been overall positive and safe being in Russia. And how do you cope with the weather, especially in the winter? So, bro, I'm not gonna lie. Winter in Russia is brutal. It's quite depressing. It's really difficult to cope as an international student, especially if you're from a country with very tropical weather like Ghana, where I come from. So you just need to prepare yourself. Sometimes the temperatures can drop as low as minus 30 degrees in some regions, depending on the city you are. My first winter was quite a shock as I arrived in December. And as you know, friends who were already in Russia would tell you that, yo, come prepared, bring a jacket, bring something, pack, wear a sweater, wear this, wear that, but nothing prepares you for the shock you receive when you come to Russia in winter. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So the moment I got out of the airport, it just hit me in the face like a pin. It was freezing. I arrived here when it was minus 33 degrees. And funny story, I brought a winter jacket, but apparently that was the wrong jacket. That jacket was meant for spring. So I was freezing. But lucky enough, we got some classmates of ours who came to meet us at the airport, and the taxis are warm. There are a lot of heaters in the taxi. So the moment we got into the Yandex taxi, we were fine. And we got to the hostel. The hostels are warmed up. So you don't really need to worry about the winters and the cold winter. The only thing you need to have to worry about is you have to dress appropriately so you don't fall sick. But I think with time and staying in the country, you get accustomed to it. You get used to the weather. It becomes manageable. But the best thing is that Russian buildings are well heated. So the cold is mostly just outside. Plus, honestly, winter comes with its own charm. It's really beautiful to look outside of your window and just look outside and see the beautiful white snow. And especially during the Christmas holidays and the New Year celebrations, there are so many winter games going on, like ice skating, people are sledding, they're just having fun, building snowmen and all that. So it's actually wonderful to be here as well in winter to enjoy this process. But then winter usually lasts for like 4 months. So after that, it's spring, and spring is one of the beautiful seasons you can ever experience in Russia. Russians, they don't joke with their landscape. They grow flowers as soon as winter is over. They are growing the flowers, very colorful flowers, bro. I'm gonna show you some pictures and videos, and you get to enjoy the city. They grow a lot of grass. They build a lot of things in the neighborhoods that is just so pleasing to see. It's beautiful to the eye. You need to be there to see these things for yourself, right? So they don't joke around when it's spring. They grow a lot of things. In summer, it's amazing. People are out in their shorts, they are wearing sunglasses, they're just having the time of their life. And there are so many places to go, so many things to see. So I think for me, one of my favorite seasons is definitely spring and summer, of course, but then I also like autumn. Final part of the video, I got some questions about, is it possible for international students to work in Russia and what's the process like? So Yes, it is possible to work as an international student, but it depends on your program. You can legally work in Russia as an international student if you are on a full-time study program. If you are on a part-time study program, it's not ideal to work in Russia. So just check the program you are offered and make sure that you are on a full-time study program. If you're on a full-time study program, you can work part-time for up to 4 hours in a day for the entire week. So it depends on you. There are so many opportunities to work part-time in Russia and make good money. And if you want to know more about this, you can leave a comment and I'll make a detailed video about working in Russia as an international student. That brings us to the end of our video today. If you were able to stay to the end of the video, thank you so much. And I hope you learned something. Maybe it was informative for you. If you have a friend who's in Russia or you know someone who wants to come to Russia, you can share this video with them and you can learn a thing or two about Russia. So if you want to know more about living in Russia, staying in Russia, studying in Russia, check out some videos that I have on the platform on my channel. And please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Пока!